recently published 2 years follow-up, and we were wondering if the effect that we saw after 3 months was sustainable over a longer period. And well, not to our surprise, we expected that, but the effect was even a bit stronger than it was after 3 months. And one of the things you see that the mortality was higher in the control group compared with the treated group, which was not the case after 3 months. Mortality changed, the difference in mortality between the two groups. And another thing was the quality of life, that after 3 months we didn't see a difference in the subjective feeling of quality of life from the patients, if you assess that with the tools for that. And we had the idea that people after 3 months would not feel very well, even if they are in the better group. And after 2 years you see there's a difference, that the people that are really in a bad shape have a lower quality of life subjectively. And that's, I think, also something that we expected, but that we can show now. Well, what we see over time after Mr. Clean is that we treat now more older patients, so the average age of the patients treated now is older than in Mr. Clean trial. And we see that we are faster, we treat patients faster than in the Mr. Clean trial. So the success rate will be higher than in Mr. Clean. So the long-term follow-up showed that it is sustainable, and now I think if we look again with the new treated patients after Mr. Clean, we will have even better success in the long term. Oh, there are so many questions that still have to be answered. One of the questions is the patients that arrive now too late for the guidelines. The guidelines state that until 6 hours after stroke onset you can treat patients with an expected benefit. But we think that after 6 hours there are also patients, and you have to select those patients. We saw in the recently presented DAWN trial that patients, even when the onset to treatment time is longer than 6 hours, and especially the last seen well, which means that wake-up strokes where patients have been last seen well the evening before, that in this group of patients, if you select them properly, you have a tremendous benefit of the treatment. So you have to select those patients properly. In DAWN they were very selective, and there are, we think, more patients that can benefit from the treatment. So we will need trials to look for the borders, the boundaries where you can still treat patients even after 6 hours. There are things like now patients that come in the hospital first get IV treatment, but if they are eligible for intraarterial treatment, they go directly to the angio suite. We don't know if this 20 or 30 minutes IV treatment does add anything to the benefit of the treatment itself. So a trial where we skip IV treatment before endovascular treatment, I think, is needed. There are initiatives for that. I will talk later at this congress about that. We still don't know, for example, if adding some drugs like heparin or aspirin will be beneficial for the patients. We stopped using heparin years ago because we thought we had a higher rate of intracranial hemorrhage, but we don't know in fact. And now there are reports that heparin might even help in cases where we see futile recanalization. Patients have their occlusion recanalized but still do not improve, probably because small vessels are still blocked. And heparin might help in those cases. So maybe there's a beneficial effect. These are things that we have to find out.
Anesthesia, is that
anesthesia? Yeah, that's a good question. Anesthesia is still a big debate. As you know, in Mr. Clean we showed in our data that general anesthesia had a negative effect on the outcome, on the treatment effect. We confirmed that, and that will be published this year in the Hermes. So the 5 trials, or now 7 trials in the Hermes collaboration, we did the same analysis, and we saw that general anesthesia had a negative effect on the outcome. On the other hand, we have now 3 studies, single-center studies, where they compared general anesthesia with conscious sedation, and they didn't see any difference between the 2 groups. There's even one trial, Goliath, presented at ESOC in Prague again, that showed even a slightly better outcome in the general anesthesia group. So we are very curious. I think it will be very useful for training training physicians to do neurointerventions. It will, in practice, be useful probably for aneurysms, AVMs with difficult anatomy, complex anatomy. For stroke, it doesn't add much, I think. So in the field of stroke, what we're talking about now, the 3D addition to what we see now doesn't add much, I think.
It's more specifically for training and for dealing with aneurysms.
Yeah, and training, I would love to have something like that in the house and use it for the fellows. Yeah.